by herself felt so good. Maggie Rose walked for several miles. She had decided to go downhill rather than up the mountains, even though one of the children swore there was a town not far in that direction. She had taken 2 hard rolls from the kitchen, and she snacked on them through the early morning. It started to get warm as the sun rose. By 10 o'clock, it was quite hot. She had been following a dirt road for miles, not walking in the road, but staying close enough. She always kept the road in sight. She walked on through the long afternoon, amazed that her strength held up in the heat. Maybe all the hard work in the fields had paid off. She was stronger now than she had ever been. She had muscles everywhere. Late in the afternoon, Maggie Rose could see the town as she continued down the mountainside. It was bigger and more modern than where she had been kept for so many months. Maggie Rose started to run down the final hills. The dirt road finally intersected with a concrete one, a real road. Maggie followed the road a short distance, and then there was a gas station. It was an ordinary gas station. Shell, the sign said. She'd never seen anything more beautiful in her life. Maggie Rose looked up, and the man was there. He asked her if she felt all right. He always called her Bobby, and she knew that the man cared about her a little. Maggie told him that she was fine. She had just been lost in a thought. Maggie Rose didn't tell him that she'd been making up stories again. Wonderful fantasies to help her escape from her pain. Chapter 82. Gary Sinigi Murphy undoubtedly still had his master plan. Now I had mine. The question was, how well could I finish mine off? How powerful was my resolve to succeed, no matter what the human cost? How far was I willing to go? How close to the edge? The trip to Virgin Gorda began in Washington, D.C. on a bleak, rainy Friday morning. It was about 50 degrees. Under normal circumstances, I couldn't have gotten out of there fast enough. We had to change to a 3-engine Trilander in sun-drenched Puerto Rico. By 3:30 in the afternoon, Jesse and I were gliding down toward a white sandy beach, a narrow landing strip bordered by tall palms swaying in the sea breeze. "There it is," she said from the seat beside me. "There's our place in the sun, Alex. I could stay here for about a month." "It does look like what the doctor ordered," I had to agree. We'd soon see about that. We'd see how long the 2 of us wanted to be alone together. "This weary traveler wants to be in that water, not looking down at it," Jesse said. "Exist on fish and fruit. Swim till we drop." "That's what we came here for, isn't it? Fun in the sun? Make all the bad guys go away?" "Everything is good, Alex. It can be. Just go with it a little." Jesse always sounded so sincere. I almost wanted to believe her. As the door of the Trilander opened, the fragrant smells of the Caribbean breezed in. Warm air rushed over the 9 of us inside the small plane. Everybody was decked out in sunglasses and brightly colored T-shirts. Smiles broke out on nearly every face. I forced a smile, too. Jessie took my hand. Jessie was right there, and yet she wasn't. Everything seemed dreamlike to me. What was happening now couldn't be happening. Black men and women with British accents took us through a sort of relaxed mini-customs. Neither Jessie's nor my bags were searched. This had actually been prearranged with the help of the U.S. State Department. Inside my bag was a small-caliber revolver, loaded and ready. "Alex, I still love it here," Jessie said as we approached the tiny queue for taxis. Along with the cabs were a number of scooters, bicycles, dirty minivans. I wondered if we'd ever take another motorcycle ride together again. "Let's stay here forever," she said. "Pretend we never have to leave. No more clocks, no radios, no news." I liked the sound of that, I told her. "We'll play Let's Pretend for a while." "You're on. Let's do it." She clapped her hands like a small child. The island scene seemed unchanged since our last visit. This had probably been the case since the Rockefeller family began to buy up the island back in the 1950s. Cruise ships and sailboats were collecting out on the sparkling sea. We passed small restaurants and shops for snorkeling gear. The brightly painted one-story homes all had TV antennas sticking from their rooftops. Our place in the sun. Paradise. Jesse and I had time to catch a swim at the hotel. We showed off a little. We stretched our bodies, racing out and back to a distant reef. I remembered our first swim together, the hotel pool in Miami Beach, the beginning of her act. Afterward, we sprawled out on the beach. We watched the sun drop down onto the horizon, bleed into it, then disappear from sight. Deja vu, Alex, Jesse smiled. Just like before. Or did I dream that? It's different now, I said, then quickly added, we didn't know each other so well before. What was Jesse really thinking? I knew that she must have a plan now, too. I figured she knew I was on to Divine and Shakely. She needed to know what I planned to do about them. A young black stud, muscular and trim in his white bathing suit and crisp hotel t-shirt, carried pina coladas down to our beach chairs. Let's play pretend didn't get any better than this. Is this your honeymoon? He was loose and carefree enough to joke with us. It's our second honeymoon, Jesse told him. Well, enjoy it doubly, said the smiling beach waiter. The slow-down pace of the island took over eventually. We had dinner at the hotel's pavilion restaurant. More eerie déjà vu for the two of us. Sitting there in the perfect Caribbean surroundings, I believe that I felt more duplicitous and completely unreal than I had in my entire life. I watched the grilled pompano and grouper and turtle come and go. I listened to the reggae band get ready, and all the while, I was thinking that this beautiful woman beside me had let Michael Goldberg die. I was also certain she had murdered Maggie Rose Dunn, or at least been an accomplice. She'd never shown a hint of remorse. Somewhere back in the States was her share of the $10 million ransom. But Jesse was smart enough to let me split the trip expenses with her. Right down the middle, Alex. No free rides here, okay? She ate island lobster and an appetizer plate of shark bites. She drank 2 ales at dinner. Jesse was so smooth and smart. In a way, she was even scarier than Gary Sinigi Murphy. What do you talk about to a murderer and someone you loved over a perfect dinner and cocktails? I wanted to know so many things, but I couldn't ask any of the real questions pounding in my head. Instead, we talked of the coming vacation days, a plan for the here and now in the islands. I stared across the dining table at Jesse, and I thought that she had never looked more physically striking. She kept tucking her blonde hair behind one ear. It was such a familiar and intimate gesture, that nervous tick. What was Jesse nervous and concerned about? How much did she know? All right, Alex, she finally said. Do you want to tell me what we're really doing on Virgin Gorda? Is there another agenda working here? I had prepared myself for the question, but it still took me by surprise. She had fired it in beautifully. I was ready to lie. I could rationalize what I had to do. I just couldn't make myself feel particularly good about it. I wanted us to be able to talk, to really talk to each other. Maybe for the first time, Jesse. Tears started in the corners of Jesse's eyes. They slowly ran down her cheeks, shiny streams in the candlelight. I love you, Alex, Jesse whispered. It's just that it will always be so hard for the two of us. It's been hard so far. Are you saying the world isn't ready for us? I asked her. Or aren't we ready for the world? I don't know which of those is right. Does it matter that it's just so hard? We walked along the beach after dinner, down toward a shipwrecked galleon. The picturesque wreck was stranded about 1/4 mile from the main pavilion and restaurant. The beach appeared to be deserted. There was some moonlight, but it got darker as we approached the fallen ship. Shredded pieces of clouds streamed across the sky. Finally, Jessie was little more than a dark shape beside me. Everything about the moment made me extremely uncomfortable. I had left my gun in the room. "Alex?" Jessie had stopped walking. At first I thought she'd heard something, and I looked over my shoulder. I knew Saniji Murphy couldn't be down here. Was it possible I could be wrong? "I was wondering," Jessie said. "Thinking about something from the investigation, and I don't want to. Not down here." "What's bothering you?" I asked her. "You stopped talking to me about the investigation. How did you wind up with Chakely and Devine?" "Well, since you brought the subject up," I said to her, "I'll tell you. You were right all the time about the two of them. Another stone-cold dead end. Now, let's have a real vacation. We've both earned it." Chapter 83. Gary Saniji Murphy watched, and his mind wandered. His mind traveled all the way back to the perfect Lindbergh kidnapping. He could still picture Lucky Lindy, the lovely Anne Morrow Lindbergh, baby Charles Jr. in his crib up in the second-story nursery of the farmhouse in Hopewell, New Jersey. Those were the days, my friends. Fantasy days at their best. What was he actually watching in the much more banal here and now? First, there was the pair of FBI goonigans in a black Buick Skylark. A male and a female goonie, to be precise, who were on stakeout duty. They were certainly harmless enough. No problem for him there. No challenge whatsoever. Next, there was the modern high-rise building where Agent Mike Devine still lived in Washington. The Hawthorne, it was called, after Nathaniel of the dark, brooding heart. Rooftop pool and sun deck. Garage parking. Concierge service around the clock. Very nice digs for the ex-agent. And the FBI goons were watching the building as if it might sprout wings and fly away. A few minutes past 10 o'clock that morning, a Federal Express delivery man entered the Shishi apartment building. Moments later, dressed in the Federal Express uniform and carrying actual packages for two tenants in the Hawthorne, Gary Saniji Murphy pushed the buzzer for 17J. Avon calling. When Mike Devine opened the door, Saniji sprayed him with the same strong chloroform potion he'd used on Michael Goldberg and Maggie Rose Dunn. Fair is fair. Just like the two children, Devine crumpled onto the wall-to-wall carpeting in his foyer. Rock music played from inside the apartment. The inimitable Bonnie Raitt. Let's give them something to talk about. Agent Devine woke up after several minutes. He was woozy and had double vision. All of his clothes had been stripped off. He was totally confused and disoriented. He was propped up in the bathtub with cold water halfway to the rim. His ankles were handcuffed to the faucet handles. "What the fuck is this?" His first words came out slurred and sloppy. He felt as if he'd had about a dozen highballs. "This is an extremely sharp knife." Gary Saniji Murphy bent over and showed off his Bowie hunting knife. "Watch this graphic demonstration. Focus those big, blurry blue eyes of yours now. Focus, Michael." Gary Saniji Murphy barely nicked the former agent's upper arm with a knife. Devine cried out. A dangerous-looking 3-inch cut opened up instantly. Blood flowed into the cold, swirling bathwater. "Not another peep," Saniji warned. He brandished the knife, threatening Devine with another nick. "This isn't exactly the sensor razor from Gillette or the Schick Tracer. More like scratch and bleed. So please, be careful." "Who are you?" Devine attempted to speak again. He was still slurring badly. "Who are you?" he said. "Please allow me to introduce myself. I am a man of wealth and taste," Saniji said. All right. Yes, he was giddy with success. The prospects for his future were shining so bright again. Devine was even more confused now. "That's from Sympathy for the Devil. The Stones? I'm Gary Saniji Murphy. Excuse the tacky delivery boy uniform, the rather crude disguise.